There are truths we were never meant to uncover, whispers of the infinite void that beckon the curious and punish the bold. Tonight we delve into a tale of cosmic horror, a solitary astronomer, an unknowable presence, and the unspeakable price of looking too far into the abyss. Welcome to the Abyss Chronicles. I had always believed the vast, indifferent expanse of the cosmos to be a refuge, a realm so incomprehensible and eternal that our brief mortal struggles could never disturb its placid march through time. But now, as I sit amidst the ruin of my observatory, my trembling hands ink-stained and the stars themselves seeming to leer down at me, I know this to be a lie. There are things in the void that see us, and to look back upon them is to invite a horror that unravels not just the mind, but the very fabric of existence. The beginning of this nightmare was innocuous enough, a routine observation on a clear, silent night. Nestled high in the desolate peaks of the Cascades, my solitary observatory had become my sanctuary. It was there, beneath the crystalline canopy of the heavens, that I first noticed the anomaly. A faint point of light, barely distinguishable from the stars, moved against the firmament with an irregular, almost predatory motion. At first, I dismissed it as an artifact of my aging telescope or a mundane satellite, one of humanity's countless intrusions upon the celestial. Yet, as I tracked its erratic path night after night, an unease began to take root. The object defied all known orbital mechanics, darting with an intent that seemed deliberate. Stranger still, whenever I observed it for extended periods, an inexplicable sensation would wash over me, as though an unseen presence lingered just out of reach. It was faint at first, a whisper on the periphery of thought, but it grew stronger with each passing night. Driven by equal parts curiosity and dread, I began to compile data, tracking its movements and peculiarities. The anomaly's trajectory seemed impossible to predict, changing course abruptly without regard for gravitational forces. Its brightness would dim and intensify irregularly, as though pulsing with a rhythm I could not discern. The more I studied it, the more it seemed to elude my understanding, and the unease that had taken root began to blossom into something darker, a sense of being watched. Odd phenomena began to manifest. My instruments, once reliable, started to falter. Readings would spike and dip erratically, and faint static would hum through the speakers when I attempted to record data. The air inside the observatory grew oppressively heavy, and the walls seemed to amplify even the smallest sounds. I began to hear faint murmurs at the edge of hearing, words that dissolved when I strained to listen, leaving only an aching void in their wake. The dreams began shortly after. Each night I found myself adrift in a void that was not a void, a place where geometry faltered and time coiled back upon itself. The sky above was a writhing tapestry of colors that had no names, hues that seemed to press against my mind as though they sought to enter and reshape it. Shapes moved in the periphery of my vision, vast and unknowable, their presence a weight that crushed all sense of self. Yet, no matter how alien the landscape, I was always drawn toward a faint, flickering light on the horizon. When I awoke, the dreams lingered like the afterimage of a lightning strike. The light, that maddening, flickering point of light, had followed me into wakefulness, an anchor between the horrors of my sleep and the waking world. I tried to dismiss it as a trick of my imagination, the byproduct of my nightly vigils, but the growing sense of connection between myself and the anomaly became impossible to ignore. One fateful night, unable to resist the compulsion any longer, I decided to enhance my equipment to capture a clearer image of the anomaly. I adjusted the lenses and filters, calibrating every aspect with meticulous care, all the while feeling as though I was crossing an invisible threshold. When I finally turned the telescope toward the anomaly, the image that resolved on the screen was nothing. A void, vast and lightless, surrounded by faint motes of debris that seemed to drift with no regard for natural order. My heart raced as I adjusted the focus, desperation rising with each futile attempt to discern its true form. And then, as though in response to my efforts, the void blinked. The realization struck me with the force of a thunderclap. This was no lifeless anomaly. It was an eye, a vast and grotesque organ that pulsated with a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with my own heartbeat. Its surface shimmered with an iridescent membranous quality, veins like rivers of molten gold coursing beneath its surface. Around it swirled a cloud of debris, fragments of stars and worlds long forgotten. The eye was not merely observing me, it was aware of me, its gaze a force that seemed to peel back the layers of my very being. The dreams that followed were more vivid than ever. I saw fragments of worlds consumed by the Watcher's gaze, entire civilizations, their spires of impossible design reaching toward alien skies, crumbled into dust beneath the weight of its observation. Oceans boiled into vapor, and suns dimmed as though ashamed to shine in its presence. And always, at the center of it all, was the eye, vast and unyielding, its gaze a black hole of intent. By day, the world around me began to change. Stars in the night sky blinked out without explanation, leaving yawning voids where light had once reigned. The instruments in my observatory failed inexplicably, their readings corrupted by indecipherable patterns. Worse still, my own reflection in the polished glass of the telescope moved when I did not, its eyes bearing a faint, dreadful glow. It seemed to mock me, as if it knew a truth I could never hope to grasp. Desperate for answers, I reached out to an old colleague who had delved into obscure astronomical phenomena. Her response was brief and chilling. Do not look further. The Watcher is a force older than our universe. It observes not for curiosity, but for conquest. Each gaze it draws only strengthens its hold. But it was too late. I could feel the Watcher's influence burrowing deeper, not just into my mind, but into reality itself. The faint point of light in the sky had grown larger, its dreadful pupil now visible even to the naked eye. The world around me decayed, as if the mere presence of the Watcher unraveled the laws of physics and reason. Time itself seemed to twist. Minutes stretched into hours, while entire afternoons vanished in an instant. The ground beneath my observatory occasionally quaked, not with the force of tectonic shifts, but with the faint, rhythmic pulsations of the Watcher's stare. In my final act of defiance, I resolved to destroy the observatory, to sever the connection I had foolishly forged. As the charges I'd planted ignited, I watched the structure collapse into rubble. But the Watcher's gaze remained, unmoving and eternal. I could feel it, not as a physical sensation, but as a dreadful certainty, anchored to my very being. And now, as I write these words, I can feel its presence more acutely than ever. The stars outside my shattered windows pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat, each flicker a silent mockery of my insignificance. The night is alive with its whispers, a susurration that speaks of infinite voids and the futility of resistance. I cannot look away. Perhaps, as you read this, you too will feel its gaze upon you. Do not look to the heavens tonight, for if you do, you may find that something vast and ancient has already begun looking back. We are but fleeting shadows cast against the vast expanse of the cosmos. To seek knowledge of what lies beyond is to court madness, for there are things that see us as we see them. If you enjoyed this descent into the unknown, subscribe to the Abyss Chronicles for more tales of Lovecraftian terror. And remember, do not look too closely at the stars tonight. You may not like what looks back,